Before he murdered two New York City cops, the assassin warned that he would do it on Instagram, but nobody knew until it was too late. Well, now some critics say social media companies have a duty to police their user content so it doesn't happen again. Do they or don't they? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asin. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus to find out with Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Sabrina Schaefer, along with Carrie Sheffield and John Tamny. Sabrina, what do you think about this?
You know, look, this is a horrible, horrible crime on the week of Christmas. I don't think there's anyone who wants to diminish this, but I don't think that going after companies like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter is the right approach. We have to remember that there's a very different world now with social media than with traditional broadcast media, where an editor or a publisher sort of affirmatively, publishes something. These are not the same thing. This is a self-publishing application that somebody can put things on. We have millions of users, and I don't think it makes sense for these companies to have to monitor all of those different statements. On
the other hand, Carrie, we're seeing it all over the place. There are a lot of copycats now putting this stuff up on the media. It's so obvious in some cases. Shouldn't Instagram or Facebook or whomever monitor their things more closely?
I think they should. I think they bear responsibility. I mean, this guy posted hashtag shoot the police. He posted pictures of a hot gun and bloodstained pants. He shot his ex-girlfriend before he went to New York. There was some time there that if Instagram had been more vigilant, we could have 2 police home with their families this holiday. And the shooter himself could have been alive as well. It was clear that he was mentally ill, and Instagram should have been more vigilant.
Steve, what is that dividing line between freedom of expression and responsibility to police?
Well, the thing is, you don't know, really, between somebody letting off steam and just being ugly and somebody's actually going to carry it out. And to have Instagram responsible for it is preposterous. They can't. This is simply a trial lawyer's delight. When something goes wrong, they can go through and say, you should have tagged this one, and sue the pants off of them. What we should be focusing on is public rhetoric by public officials who sort of semi-condone what eventually happened. And you see that rhetoric going on today in the governor of Missouri, not protecting those stores with the National Guard. That's where the focus should be. People have that responsibility.
We will get to that. But before we leave the responsibility of the companies, John Tamny, I want to focus on a guy in Massachusetts, a Chicopee man in Massachusetts, who put on his Facebook account, I want to put wings on pigs. He is now apparently going to be brought in before the police with a potential charge of threat to commit a crime. There is a crime on the book for such a threat.
Yeah, I think all of this is a really bad idea that would ultimately make us much less safe. As we all know, there's all sorts of uneven people out there who post all sorts of odd things on social media. But if suddenly we're informing on them, we are going to require law enforcement to cover all bases and basically chase a lot of false alarms. And we're going to also live in a society that we don't like, whereby we're informing on people, maybe just because we don't like them. This is a dangerous road to travel on.
Yeah, well, and to your point, Rich Karlgaard, there are charges and then countercharges. There's this Brandeis student, a junior at Brandeis, a woman who put up after the murder of the 2 New York cops, I just really don't have sympathy for the cops that were shot. I hate this racist effing country. And then she took down the website. Somebody else at Brandeis put it back up again, and now she's all upset about that. About the fact. So it just, when you begin to blame people and threaten lawsuits and such, it just leads to a whole mess.
Yeah, not to mention the fact, David, that it would be hideously expensive for Instagram or Facebook or any of these companies to come up with the software or to have live people monitors. I mean, China employs millions of people who monitor websites. I don't think we want to go in that direction. And it's a very, very slippery slope. Imagine, a referee makes a bad call in a football game. 20,000 people want to kill the umpire or the referee, and maybe one really does because they lost a lot of money betting on the game. It's impossible to sort these things out. In retrospect, of course, you can, but in real time, you can't.
Well, in real time, Sabrina, we are still seeing real protests. We had one this week in Manhattan that was interfering with shopping. Even though the mayor, who's frankly been very slow to condemn some of the violence and some of this awful, hateful rhetoric, he said that they shouldn't protest. They went ahead and protest anyway.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly to Steve's point, which is that the real story here is that we have a president and others in this administration, we have members of the media, and we have sort of community organizers who have been inciting this kind of violence, who have been encouraging the sort of demagoguery language and pitting Americans against one another and suggesting that there's reason to sort of fan the flames of fire here. I think that's the real story here. That's what's so upsetting. So much of this could be avoided if we had real leadership.
Carrie, isn't that the point, that if we did have real leadership that stood up where they should stand up, we wouldn't have these nuts out there?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, Mayor de Blasio bears responsibility to some degree for stoking the flames and for not standing up for cops. I totally agree. That being said, we have laws in many states that require mental health workers to report if someone is going to be violent or they suspect someone. So I would actually compare that to this, as well as sort of the broken windows policing theory. We want the police to be on call. We want them to report if there's these sort of broken windows. I would compare that to Instagram here.
John Tamny, I see you shaking your head no. Go ahead.
Well, I'm all for de Blasio defending the police, as he should, but I just don't buy the idea that this wouldn't happen without him. I'm sorry, there are just certain people out there who are a bit nuts, and they are going to do this, and you're not going to change that. But the good news is that the vast majority of people are not murderers, and so the idea of us actively policing a lot of funny statements on social media is just a dangerous path for a country like ours.
Steve, it doesn't take much to set some of these people off, and I wouldn't be surprised if the shooter that killed the New York cops was in some way motivated to go out there and do what he did by some of the rhetoric that he'd been hearing.
Yes, those things can push strange people, nutty people over the edge to do something they only are fantasizing about. That's true. But again, that gets to public officials. That gets to the media. And public officials have a responsibility to tamp things down, not inflame them, and call people out who are doing things they shouldn't be doing in terms of inflaming things. Don't blame Instagram. Blame our public officials for not standing up for what is right.
The last word from the boss.